Hey, fellow Unwatchers. Now is a great time to check out our new, improved, and very active Patreon page. For every episode, you get Marc and Seth's full reviews of each movie, plus weekly looks back at other films we've covered, special lists, viewing guides, and access to all our locked bonus episodes. Today's Patreon-only bonus content is an extended conversation with this episode's guest, Zach Butcher, about the Halloween film series. We touch on the topic here, but for the full conversation, join the Unwatchables team for as little as $1 a month and have our eternal gratitude. Patreon.com/unwatchables. Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the podcast where you pay to get in and pray to get out. I am Marc Dottavio.
But it's free, I'm Seth.
And today it is all serial killers all the time. We are joined by musician Zach Butcher for two 80s horror films that helped pioneer movies like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that deglamorized real-life killers while keeping us firmly in their shoes. They are 1980's grimy New York slasher Maniac and 1983's Austrian cult shocker Angst. Speaking of angst-ridden maniacs, our good friend, Zach Butcher is on the show today. If you are around Akron, you might have encountered him somewhere.
Or if you're just in a general Midwestern hardcore punk person, I feel like you might know of this person.
Yeah, what is the band that just put out that album, or is it an EP?
It was an EP, but
Okay.
I mean, I feel like in punk, a 6-song EP could be an album.
Sure.
Whatever. We're called The Jackal.
The Jackal.
The Jackal. Is that so there's a old man who comes into the library that I work at. I know you work at the library as well. And he came in and he kept asking for the Jackal. It's like a movie. And he came in like every 3 days asking, like, I'm looking for the Jackal. Is it in here?
Hell yeah.
Did you try giving him Zach's album?
Yeah, you should have. That would have been awesome.
He was just waiting. He might just be waiting on your album. I don't know if this movie. I think it's like a thriller movie, so probably not anything you
It's
would
like
base your songs
thriller
about killing.
I want to
bullets.
say, Richard Gere and Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
The Jackal.
That's some Zach Butcher stuff right there.
Is that where you got your name from?
No, in typical form, I stole it from a Misfits song. Theme for a Jackal is the Misfits song I ripped it from.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, you get your inspiration from lots of places. You've written songs about both of these movies or just one?
This was not Jackal. This was Grip, but Grip Hook wrote songs about both movies, yes. And I think both of them were on the first EP, but they were definitely both on the first album.
All right. And we are getting acoustic renditions of them today on the show.
In the studio.
That's the dream.
Live and unplugged.
That's right.
Yeah. And Zach has a really cool kind of solo country EP album, whatever you want to call it, too.
Mm-hmm.
So go on Spotify, and that's just under your actual name, right?
No, it's under Zach White.
Okay.
Yeah. My
when you have an actual
name.
awesome name like Zach Butcher,
I know.
I mean, all right.
So I several years ago, Grip Hook was supposed to play a show that was in like an art gallery in Cleveland, and the art gallery just, I mean, like it is what it is, like who cares? But they were just like, oh, that's a metal band. Metal bands aren't allowed to play our gallery. And so I had talked before about wanting to do a country album. I was in a band before Grip Hook, and when we broke up, my mom was like, will you make a country album for me? And I was like, sure, anything for my own mom. And
you're just like Elvis.
That's right, dude. Yeah. I love peanut butter and my mom. But
every song is so clearly directed right towards your mom, too.
That's right, dude. And so I had talked about doing a country album for a long time, and it was going to be under Zach White. And then when Grip Hook was denied playing that venue, we were just like, oh, okay. So we played under Zach White and the Nighthawks, and we all dressed like cowboys. And instead of wearing ski masks, we wore whatever the hell the thing is, like a handkerchief. And so yeah, that was like the continuation of it, if you will. And then Tony engineered the EP that I did, and that came out in June.
That's our Tony
Tony
Scarpitti
of Unwatchables fame. You
Unwatchables Tony. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been recording, producing, mixing all kinds of music lately, including two of your projects now. Or are there more that I haven't?
No, he did Jackal and Zach White, but then he worked on Bogged Down, which is our drummer's other project, and I want to say he worked on something else as well. I think he's just like working with all of the Zach adjacent bands now.
He must be making so much money.
That's right.
That's why he's not here right now. He's less and less in our studio here.
Yeah, he was so sick of Zach, he just couldn't take another half hour.
That I would believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had Zach on before for our New French Extremity episode where we talked about High Tension, right? And Martyrs. But this episode, I think, has more to do with the Halloween episode that we did with Katie Reif about Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and The Golden Glove.
Yes.
Because I feel like these movies are kind of starting to bridge the gap between like early 80s slashers and movies that are a little more psychological, a little more realistic and gross and grimy. And Maniac, I think, is even more of like a in-between movie. So I definitely want to start with that. It is from 1980, right on the dot, directed by William Lustig, who apparently, I guess before this, he was mainly doing pornographic films. And since he was responsible for the Maniac Cop series, which has awesome covers, but I've never watched any of them.
They're fine. Bruce Campbell's in 1 and 2, and in typical form of like, hey, this famous person, Bruce Campbell's billed like on number 2 as like main cast. He's in it for like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Like it's the first 5 minutes. Yeah.
I saw that he was in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Maniac Cop's nuts. There's, I want to say 4 of them. Definitely at least 3. And like they have their own song and shit. Like it's
cool.
It's an institution.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay.
And so he cleaned up his act and quit the whole Maniac Cop thing and porn thing and made just Maniac.
Sort of. Yeah.
Well, this Maniac was before Maniac Cop. And he also did this one movie called Uncle Sam that I saw when I was like a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Uncle Sam being really nice to people?
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, really?
It's like, no, it's like an undead.
Oh, okay.
It's like a zombie guy in an Uncle Sam mask. And I remember him killing somebody on stilts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so Uncle Sam is like a video store classic where it's like you might not have seen the movie, but you have that like that box burned into your head forever.
Yeah, with like the holographic
cover
that would like move, like the Jack Frost cover.
The Jack Frost one.
Yeah. Dude, it's just like that.
I rewatched Jack Frost last year with my brother, and I was like, wow, this movie is horrendous. Like, it is so bad.
No, it is. No, there's the Jack Frost that's actually a slasher.
The Michael Keaton one is
and
not
then there's
the
a
one
Jack
I'm
Frost.
about.
Yeah, I was talking about the not Michael Keaton one, but they both have the same holographic video case. Yeah. It's crazy. And the same plot, obviously, but they both have the magical video case. Yeah. I never noticed that until now.
Yeah.
But Maniac, that's going to be what he's remembered for. Maybe. I feel like this movie has kind of a cult following now. I found this clip of Siskel from Siskel and Ebert. He picked it as the dog of the week on their show and said that he walked out after 20 minutes.
The first 20 minutes of that movie aren't even that bad. So, like, grow up, dude.
Yeah, I'm not even sure really what he was
clutching his little pearls.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is one of those, like, early 80s, late 70s, gritty New York movies. So that's, like, the first thing that jumps out at me about it. It's like, Driller Killer, we were talking about, Seth, or Basket Case, So if nothing else, this has that pungent, grimy, seedy New York atmosphere.
Yeah, back when everybody was a prostitute, you'd get killed. The rent was cheap. All the scenes when you're out in the streets have no one on the streets, where like now it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in the shittiest place in New York and it feels like there's got to be 4,000 people around.
When they were releasing this movie, it got a lot of flack, and people were, like, mothers against Maniac and stuff like that. Like, there was a lot of like pushback against it, and they were talking about how it was like very misogynistic and it was very gross. But the main guy in the movie, the actor, he was in the first Godfather, and he was friends with like Sylvester Stallone, and so there's like pictures of him like walking down the street wearing shirts like promoting Maniac, standing next to these like massive actors from movies like Godfather or whatever the fuck Sylvester Stallone had done by the early 80s.
So he can't be that bad of a guy. Joe Spinell.
There we go.
He looks like a guy who would be in The Godfather for sure, or some weird, creepy Italian uncle you'd have.
He's in The Godfather 2 also, reprising the same role. He's in Rocky 1 and 2.
So there you go. That's how he was friends with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, he's the criminal guy who's like leading Rocky astray before he finally ascends to boxerhood, I think.
And he appears in Taxi Driver.
And he's in Cruising. Come on now.
Yeah, he's in Cruising.
He plays one of the cops.
Yeah. And Forbidden Zone, which we covered a few episodes back.
Yeah.
But not quite as memorable there. But
he's
which
everywhere.
Actually, the way that he's like this weird character actor who now is the center of this movie, which he also co-wrote and co-produced. So he was very intimately involved with this. Like, it kept making me think of Timothy Carey from World's Greatest Sinner, which we talked about
you can tell it's
in the
his
Forbidden
baby.
Zone episode.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. For sure. You can tell it's his baby, and his, like, he's going to go all out. He's, like, method acting, it feels like. It's just like, he's going nuts as Orson Welles, but gross and killing women.
And he wanted to do a sequel really bad as well. Like when you buy like a physical copy now, they're all put out by Blue Underground, which is Bill Lustig's company. There's like special features that include stuff of what would have been Maniac 2. Like he was gunning for it super hard.
I bet. I hope he ended up better than Timothy Carey did. Like, or did he slowly lose his mind? But yeah, he's an interesting guy to have at the center of your movie. Like, you definitely could not deglamorize a serial killer more. He looks like
he's
Ron
ugly.
Jeremy.
Yeah, he's ugly.
Well, Seth's very superficial. It likes to punch down on people's looks, but I think he's beautiful on the inside.
I mean, and I would still date him.
Yeah, I think I have dated him.
Because this movie proves that there's more behind his face. There's a lot going on with this guy.
Yeah, on the
he
inside,
wears sunglasses
he's really great.
Mm-hmm. There's multiple personalities.
But I think if you give this movie credit, I mean, for anything, is that, I mean, he does make an impression, and he makes no effort whatsoever, like to garner sympathy or to relate to the audience. He looks slimy and nuts, except for all that weird brief period where he's like seducing this photographer, and he shows up all clean cut and has this kind of like confident little low key charm going on.
Well, yeah, the first half.
Part of me I don't buy for the character, and then the other part of me is a little kind of impressed that he was able to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, the first half he's just doing the serial killer by numbers thing, and he just like sneaking around and killing people, making out in cars and stuff like you would imagine. And he has his serial killer lair that's like he loves his little mannequins that he puts the scalps of all the women that he kills on, and
dude,
because it's like his bat cave or something. But all of a sudden he meets one girl, and it's not so much that she challenges him. Like maybe you think it for a second, which is kind of fun, that she challenges him to, maybe I'll stop this whole serial killer thing, and Joe Spinell's going to be sexy. And and be normal here. But really, you find out that it's just he's multifaceted in how fucked up he can be. He can act like a guy who knows about photography and art and dresses up and can be charming and ask a hot lady on a date in order to eventually like destroy her. It's just a weirder, slower way of doing so. He must really like her. That's really what it must like boil down to.
Yeah, and part of me wanted to doubt her receptiveness to his advances and her seeming to be interested in him. But then I think about a lot of couples I see in real life, and actually it kind of tracks. So
I also buy it the way she plays it. It is sort of like, well, you know, he seems like a well-to-do man. I guess I'll go on a dinner date, but it's just dinner, you know, and all that.
But she doesn't really show up till the second half of the movie. I'd say the first half is a lot closer to a typical slasher movie, with the exception that we're only sticking around this killer's perspective, except for these long, you know, stalking set pieces. Right? There's a couple of them in this movie, and especially that one in the subway that just goes on like forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And it does switch to the victim's perspective during those parts, and he does become more or less like, you know, it follows like the Friday the 13th beats, those scenes, even though I think they're relatively well done. I mean, they're pretty well staged. I'd say the movie in general is kind of well directed for its kind. And, but it is, I don't know. I feel a little underwhelmed by the early, how much time is given over to those sequences where it really is just like a slasher movie. And I don't think it ever fully escapes from that either, but it gets a little more interesting for me when finally he has another character who's in more than one scene who he gets to interact with, and we see kind of a different side of him.
I think that while you are right, I think that it's the kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning. This movie is just early enough in like the slasher boom that it doesn't quite fit the formula, you know, like even, you know, going as far as the ending with like the kind of just like Shakespearean goofiness of it. There's so much about Maniac that it goes in these, we'll say like three different directions, but it always does wind up back on the path of being a slasher. But it's not quite, you know, at the post, you know, Friday the 13th part 4, where it's just like you do the thing for 80 minutes and you make your money. Like that's it. Like it tries to do something which ultimately hurts it, because then you get stuff like that where you're just like this 15-minute scene in a subway that could have been 5 or like whatever.
And I think I'd take it further that, to its credit, even though like scenes like the subway scene are really drawn out, like suddenly we lose the fact that, you know, the draw of the movie is that we're following the maniac. There is no main character other than the killer, which, you know, even the most like brain dead of the sequels of the Friday the 13th, there's a main character who is not Freddy, right? Like
his name's Jason, but yeah.
Whoa, man, you can kill me.
That's right.
Yeah. But
wait, isn't that the one with the leprechaun?
Okay.
No, that's yeah. The one in space.
All right.
Right.
But yeah, I just love that about this movie. And even in those extended chase scenes, it all goes back to him. Like you are left with him, which I think still just winds up making it stand apart. And even in its more generic quote unquote moments, I'm still very aware of that.
Yeah.
And it feels creepier, but it's more exciting because of that. There's no escape. We're just stuck with him, which I think is still really novel. I think there was like a movie recently, I didn't see it, but it kind of was like this from
In a Violent Nature.
In a Violent Nature, which I was curious to see, because yeah, it's still a rare thing where it's just, no, we are staying with this character who is awful and making it really hard for us to stay in the room.
Yeah, it's funny. I read that the guy who made In a Violent Nature was actually cited Angst as a inspiration, which is it's for the same reason that Maniac, you know, would have been. Except I think that In a Violent Nature is a little more of like a conceptual it's not like getting in the head of a killer. It's more like, what if we just literally had like a Friday the 13th movie where all we did was follow Jason around and he's still a hulking zombie like monster the whole time, which is something I've always kind of wanted to see and wondered if you could make a whole movie out of that. And I found it kind of amusing. I don't know, maybe we could even cover that someday because it is really weird. As far as what like a general audience would expect.
Well, I thought about that with both of these movies because I wonder what you guys think of the voiceovers in some of these. Or there is, or like the points more so in Maniac, he talks to himself, but we are given context where otherwise it would be just us watching this guy doing these fucking awful things and going through his life and everything. That's the only way we actually get any sort of real plot explanation and narrative. I don't know. Did those hurt or harm this experience with Maniac?
I think it makes Maniac stand out against something like Henry, where, you know, like Maniac and Henry are often compared to each other. And I get it, you know, it makes sense. But Maniac, and I don't have a better way to explain than what I said a couple minutes ago, it has like these like Shakespearean aspects to it where Henry almost feels like a snuff film the entire time. Like Henry is just feel bad the whole time. Any story you get just makes you feel worse. Where Maniac, it's like him talking at least offers something else and a sense of him as a person. Not necessarily a good person, but he is a person.
Yeah, I think it's probably best not to get too hung up on comparing this to Henry because like that really is a totally different thing going on. Like you were saying, like Henry would never have a scene where Tom Savini's head explodes from a shotgun blast.
Right.
Or a dream sequence with zombies devouring him.
Yeah.
You know, at the end. And if you go in expecting that the kind of psychological acuity that Henry has, or even it really being that disturbing, you'll probably be disappointed. And I don't know, this movie sometimes got swept up in the whole video nasty thing where I don't think it was actually officially part of the list, but it was still like released unrated and the BBFC refused its for a classification. It might have been like seized in some places. But do you guys really think it's that bad as far as that goes? Like I didn't really get in under my skin that much, and I wouldn't say that there was anything more disturbing than you would normally get from a slasher movie.
They blew his whole
head
head
so
off.
Grimy.
They did blow Savini's whole head off. But
yeah, he deserves it, dude.
But they didn't get, they didn't ban scanners.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, it does seem hyperbolic. And I mean, and this one does have a lot going on narratively to hold it. It does not feel just like a House of Horror movie, like just one thing after another. But I think, and just to spoil my feelings on Angst, I think I like the way the pathology and the backstory is presented more in this, even though you could say it's more hokey, like in presentation. And it's like more standard, like 80s, like video nasty kind of feel. But the way it comes forth, it winds up being so much more garbled in a way that you can kind of connect the dots and you can kind of understand because you're getting like his mumblings and things that you're hearing in his head about like mother and I'm being punished and stuff. But there's just enough left out, I think, that I appreciate to like maybe it could be either worse than he's saying it was, or it could be actually not all that bad and it's just an excuse, right? Which is always the thing that you're never sure about with, serial killer backgrounds and excuses, right? And I like that in this, that, it is kind of garbled and you don't get the full picture where something like Angst just felt like it was just giving me the download with the voiceover to the extent where I was getting this whole guy's biography, which I just do not need.
Well, they both definitely have mommy issues or maybe grandmommy issues.
Yeah.
And this guy's very hung up on that. And like you said, his apartment is a very cool set full. If there's anything you remember from this movie besides the New York setting, it's probably those mannequins and the scalps on top of them.
Hammering them in while wearing those goofy ass sunglasses. Dude, hell yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say, this movie has a really cool poster that I knew for a long time before I actually sat down and watched the movie. Yeah. And that tagline, it's like, I warned you not to go out tonight. Yeah.
I like you guys saying that ominously in unison.
That's right.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that this is still like a very tentative step away from, other slasher movies, that it stands out best, like relative to a lot of the other movies that were coming out around that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like a little cooler on it this time. I watched it for the first time last October. And, was a little surprised at how competent it was. And there were like some decent performances and things. Maybe it's just something that like on rewatches, it becomes a little more plain, like how much of it is long stalk and slash sequences.
Yeah.
And then just kind of in between, we get a lot of him talking to himself as his mother. And it started to get a little repetitive for me. But it still does. I do think that he makes a compelling central figure. And just as a time capsule, all of these movies that are set in New York around this time, like low budget films, have a character to them that I'm going to guess like the remake doesn't have. Which, by the way, have you seen that, Zach?
The Elijah Wood remake?
Elijah Wood in this role.
Yeah. So
classic sleazeball.
I will say, I love Elijah Wood, and I think that Elijah Wood, similar to the Daniel Radcliffes, the Adam Drivers, the Bobby P's, the people that are really known for one thing and then they do something else very different, blah, 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 blah. Elijah Wood has always been like very vocal about how much he likes horror. He's produced plenty of horror movies. He's done a handful of horror movies. He, Spectre Vision's him and two friends. So him doing Maniac was not necessarily the most far-fetched thing to me, but I think that Elijah Wood doing Maniac, similar to when he had that role in Sin City, it's just like, yeah, okay, like I get it, but I think that Elijah Wood does a better job being in a horror movie where he isn't like the bad guy.
Yeah, I could see him as a victim.
Yeah. I think that he just
stunt casting.
Yeah, he just has that like Justin Long face where you're just like, I gotta kill this guy. So yeah, I don't know. But the remake's fine. The score is like the really big thing with it. The score's awesome. The movie itself is fine. It's whatever.
Yeah, the score is so like bling, 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 just all that 80s synth stuff. Some of it's really cool. Some of it is like someone screaming in my ears. Like that kind of like early, like this is what a synth does, right?
Right. Yeah, we used to use bits from the score for like interlude stuff or intros and outros for Grip Hook. And I remember like every time I would like pick a new one, we would have to just turn it so far down because it was just piercingly fucking loud.
It was so loud.
Yeah, and it is cool that Tom Savini is hanging around here, right? So I mean,
how did he do his own makeup and get his head blown off at the same time? I don't
remember who had guessed it on Joe Bob when they showed it, but we'll just say it was Tom Savini. But the story was they didn't have the money to like get a permit for that scene, so they shot that scene and then threw the rifle into the car and just like put a brick on the gas or whatever and just drove the car into a lake and just left. Like they filmed that scene at like 4 a.m. and just like dumped the car in the fucking body of water. And they were just like, all right, well, we're done now.
It definitely has that kind of energy.
And the car's still there to this day.
Dude, it probably is.
They didn't come back. That's fucked up.
I'm going to pause this for a second. You guys are like way breaking out for me. Is anyone else experiencing that?
I am not. No.
Interesting. It'd be me. Zach is totally frozen and kind of making a funny face.
Not to gaslight you, but
right now for me. Well, it should be recording fine then. I can hear you okay now. So We'll just edit that out. And if for all of the horror people who aren't horror people and don't know who Tom Savini is, he's like very iconic special effects makeup artist from the like
Dawn of the Dead,
mostly the 80s Dawn of the Dead, the original Friday the 13th.
Yeah. He started in like the Pittsburgh scene with people like George Romero, and then he did plenty of other stuff. He runs a special effects school out of Pittsburgh. He still lives in Pittsburgh. Huge sleazeball. If you see him, just kick his ass. And his special effects have never gotten any better. He is stuck in 1982 with those special effects.
But they're scrappy. They have charm and character.
Yeah.
Very red.
Right.
Yeah. And you see him
very red.
Very red, very bright red.
I'll tell you what, another highlight of this movie, the disco music.
Dude, and his character, Disco Boy. Like, it just all plays into it.
He does look like a cocaine disco boy, and they're singing that song. It was like, go into the showdown. Something about a showdown. And I'm just like, I've never heard this song. No one will ever hear this song outside of Maniac.
That's right. Yeah, Maniac and Prom Night both are like these, they're just at the turn of the century, and it's like just as disco is starting to die. And so it's like it kind of freezes these movies in this weird spot.
Yeah, so this kind of fits in an interesting place with all of those other movies that we've been talking about, where it doesn't quite fit in with them, but you still have people like Tom Savini there.
Right.
And that does make it, more interesting.
Joe Spinell did do other horror movies, but I don't think any of them were ever as big as this one.
He looks like he's related to the Kurgan in Highlander. Looks like they're cousins or something. It's also a very proto Jeffrey Dahmer movie. The whole he's very obsessed with keeping people with him. Like he's like the whole desertion is the problem, which I know that was the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing. It was not so much that he wanted to kill people, but he did obviously like that part, of course. That's a whole other thing. But he wanted them to stay with him. He wanted to keep them in his bed. Why can't you just shut up and be there? Be my zombie dead person thing. I guess I will have to kill you. I don't know. I just always think that's interesting in media pre-Dahmer. Just like it was like obviously Dahmer didn't invent that, as like other killers experienced it. It is just interesting. Like, that's the one that really put it into the popular consciousness. So it's interesting to see it before that.
I feel like all that starts with Ed Gein, because all these movies that have people being skinned or making lamps out of them, or like taking them home and famously having mommy issues. Like
specifically the mommy stuff is Gein, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a straight line kind of from that to how it inspired Psycho, which then inspired Peeping Tom, which is something that came to my mind a lot during this too. With as far as an earlier movie that's following this killer who has this kind of ritual and hang-ups about who he kills. And then we see it like kind of going through this, and of course Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, and I think that where we ultimately land is like with Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs, where you could almost this kind of who this guy more or less is without the gender dysphoria angle.
It turns out Jeffrey Dahmer just liked in the movie. Return of the Jedi. He didn't even like those kind of movies.
Yeah, Gein walked so Dahmer could run.
It's all true.
Say. It is. So yeah, I mean, any final thoughts about this? I did kind of feel coming away from this like wondering exactly how much there'd be to talk about, because when it comes down to it, there really isn't like that much to this movie. It's just kind of cool. It's very yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's when you look at slashers, especially in that like 1980 to 1983, like the very early post Black Christmas, post Halloween, whatever the fuck, whatever. But it's like there's the start of what becomes like a formula, yes, but it's also like the start of like those different paths where it's like, the Burning and Friday the 13th, where it's just like you can do it at a summer camp and it's always going to work. And then Prom Night being like you can do it with teenagers in another place and it's going to work. And then Maniac being just like you can do it in any city and it's going to fucking work. Like Cruising being a sort of slasher, this being a slasher. There's plenty of other late 70s, early 80s movies that I can't even think of the fucking names of right now that like Vinegar Syndrome have put out, that they all fall into that category of just like setting up for
New York, Chicago, LA, like any big city, it works so well. And it's just, I think Maniac is like the poster for it. It's, it's a fine movie. You watch it more than once and you just kind of get bored. Like the first time I saw it was on the big screen. Every time I've watched it since, I'm just like, yeah, I like this movie. But it does play its part. And I think that that's like the big takeaway that anyone should have. Also, this guy that was in fucking Rocky and The Godfather made this disgusting movie. That rules.
He
that
was in
rules so
three
so
Best
funny and
Picture
ugly.
winners. Fucking crazy.
No, I think this one does stand out, and I could understand the lack of replayability with this one. Sure, it like plays its cards, but I don't know. Even just standing out historically, it still is an odd man out as far as its aims of aiming a little higher for something idiosyncratic and like about the killer, not messing around with all the stuff that bores me a lot more, and I think bores a lot of people with horror movies in general, is the fake ass, like, well, we need to have a moral center, so we're going to follow around this boring character for a while, even though you're really here to run around with this crazy guy, right? This just gives you the crazy guy to run around with, and it's a lot more interesting while not becoming like, it doesn't overplay its hand, I don't think. It embarrasses itself in being pretentious or something necessarily.
Yeah.
Or like going too far to like unravel him and give us a window in. Again, I like that it's muddled and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this one is like a strong example of kind of like what makes something like the original Halloween as good as it is just kind of that idea where it's like, there's not really anything like backing up why he's evil, quote unquote, like I mentioned Prom Night a couple minutes ago. In Prom Night, the killer has a motive. And Friday the 13th, that killer has a motive. In all the sequels, there's some form of motive. This, that, the other. Halloween, 5-year-old kid just goes apeshit and kills his sister and then becomes a killer, forever. Maniac, the dude's just crazy. But it's not like, oh, Psycho, where, this, or Don't Go in the House, where his mom, like, abused him, and it was kind of like Psycho. Like, he's just insane. Like, he's just a bad guy, quote unquote.
Right. I mean, I think it argues against that whole, like, like boiling it down, like, oh, his mom punished him once, or like that's why he creates a murder palace and everything. Like, that's why. Yeah. It's like very, very transparent, where it's like, yeah, that's not exactly the whole reason why. And even the way they're displayed is, like, again, ambiguous in that it's just his mom in his head saying, like, I have to punish you now. I'm going to have to punish you now. Exactly. So it might have just been so like, I don't know, maybe you did something bad. Like, you're going to get punished by mom sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's wrapped up with the mom stuff, but there's not necessarily a smoking gun as far as why. Like, serial killers, there's some of them that are just obsessed with their moms, I guess.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more just that he's not faceless, he's not a secondary character or a guy who's just there to be revealed in the end and then get killed. You know? So sticking with him and getting to know him, whether you find that to be like particularly, fascinating or magnetic, depends. But
yeah,
it's also punky and fun. That's what keeps me there.
Absolutely.
Which
I almost wish that
I cannot
kind of cool dream sequence. The kind of that dream sequence at the end, where things start to get a little loopy.
They get a little loopy
with him. I mean, that's where I was kind of starting to have fun, and I almost wish that had come like sooner, and we got a little more of him, maybe having visions or interacting with this fantasy world that he's created. I don't know, but that's a different movie.
I would have loved more of that. I would have loved more of just him putting on different personas in order to sneak into people's lives and kill them, right? Because he does it only the one time, and that is like a really interesting idea that he suddenly, poof, he's got a cool suit on, and sure, he can get this supermodel to go on a date with him, shit like that. I just thought that was really interesting that he can disappear into characters or something.
Yeah. Well, I stepped all over your good transition into Angst, Seth. Or is it Angst?
I think that we should just say Angst, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say Angst for a whole episode.
Well, I've been
I'm not
alluding to it the
Austrian.
whole episode, so
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, this is Austrian film from 1983, which, I mean, I remember a few years ago when this came to the Criterion channel for the
Pronounced
first time.
Australian.
It's not there anymore, but I'd never heard of it, and all of a sudden it was like, here's this cult movie that a lot of people love. That is, I mean, it definitely makes an impression. And again, it ended up on the Criterion channel.
Yeah.
But this really has, is not a super well-known movie, but I do think that there is like kind of a cult behind it now. And this is definitely like a much further step away from Maniac, where we have directors like Gaspar Noé, who did Irreversible that we talked about, and other wild movies that maybe we'll get to in the future.
The camera goes crazy and it makes you feel bad for a long time. I love it. I don't know if he talks like that.
I'm sure that's it. I don't know what accent that was.
I stole your girlfriend, bitch.
Hello,
I just feel like he would steal my girlfriend.
We have a new character who's Gaspar Noé. But yeah, this is actually based on a specific real person, unlike Maniac, a mass murderer. Who cares what his name is, but he's an Austrian guy who did a home invasion and killed 3 people, very much like the ones in this movie, a guy in a wheelchair and a mom and a younger daughter. And a lot of details that were taken from that case that were used in this. Like a surprising amount. But so I guess that was the inspiration behind this. And I guess the idea was just, let me depict in minute detail this entire day of this guy doing it.
I think that is absolutely accurate. So the first time I saw Angst, it was 2020. And I just remember like Shudder had picked it up and they had a couple movies that were in like a category that was just like extreme, but it was like that. And then like Cannibal Holocaust and maybe Cannibal Ferox, and we'll say Martyrs, but I don't think Martyrs has ever made its way to Shudder. I don't think they can afford that, but like whatever. And I was just like, oh, I don't know what this movie is, but that's cool. And I remember pressing play on it. And it was one of those 5 titles that had this thing at the beginning that was just like, we at Shudder believe that the art should be presented in no like edited form. That being said, this is considered an extreme title, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't know what to expect. And then, I watched it and I was just like, oh, damn, like, yeah, it's a good slasher. It's, it does what it should. But like the other thing that came with it for me was the score isn't like that neon 80s, like, 1982 forward slasher score where everything sounds like a fucking keyboard, and it's not like the Friday the 13th end of it or this or that. It's like this weird like string thing that is a lot less common for a slasher, more specifically for something that isn't considered like highbrow, like a giallo, and I think that was cool. And then with
it feels very like industrial, like European industrial. There's like a drum. Feels like there's a drum machine involved or something.
It's like tinny, gated drums and synths that sound like a Gregorian chant.
Right? Yeah, like it doesn't sound like it's like Depeche Mode instead of like Duran Duran. Like there's weird like metal clanking sounds, but it still sounds like there's an actual stringed instrument being played, if not mimicked, or mimicked if not played. But then with the camera work, a lot of that stuff, like they like put a camera on top of that dude as like they just like lugged it around like that. And I think it's similar to, like Black Christmas did a similar thing. The camera work in Peeping Tom, and then, like the camera in Evil Dead being like this groundbreaking thing for, independent filmmakers. But just like Angst having those angles was so cool. And I think that's kind of like what drew me in with it, was that it wasn't so cut and dry.
Yeah, the Requiem for a Dream cinematography kind of like, they had like rigs strapped to them and stuff, and getting you into the adrenaline. I think that's really where this, because it definitely follows similar to Maniac. It's following the serial killer here rather than the victim. And it's also like goes one step further and not just atmosphere, like getting you into the zone. It's like about the motion and the physicality. So like the camera shaking and everything when he runs after somebody is about getting you into like what it feels like to be him. Like, is really
the first time
intense,
I saw this,
like physically.
I mean, the camera work and the way that this looks like immediately stopped me in my tracks. Like, whoa, this is not just some regular slasher movie. It's I would say, I don't know, 70% of the movie is these looming, like high angle tracking shots,
like crane
where the person,
shots.
that are a lot of times like almost spinning or half spinning and going back around. Totally see where Gaspar Noé was getting off on this movie. And like you said, the camera being strapped to the actor, and that early scene where he stops in this diner and is eating sausage while everyone is kind of, he's looking at people and they're looking at him, and they're these
just
extreme
like so
close-ups.
sweaty.
My
apparently
God.
When you order a hot dog in Austria, they give you the bun and a hot dog and some mustard all separate. They refused to put it together. And it was driving me insane.
Maybe he had a gluten thing. I don't know.
Make a sandwich.
Didn't just sit there and eat a sausage like a fucking serial killer.
Dip my wiener in the corner.
Some of those shots, like where you're talking about like being like up in the room, I think that what that does well, I think is replicated well in something like Door or the Resident Evil games, where it's like just those early ones where it's like every shot is the most annoying camera of all time, but it adds to the tension.
Yeah, this is like overhead shots of the movie.
Yeah.
It's
so you watch him go through a window in the weirdest angle of all time.
So immediately, like between that and that rackety score, and just this guy in this lead role, right? I mean, he just looks, he's very captivating looking.
Looks like his face seems like it's stop motion clay animated, stretching in front of my. It looks like some fucker out of Amelie or Delicatessen. Some of those weird, like Dr. Seuss people he finds for his movies.
Yeah, he's like a fucked up John Mulaney, like German, big foreheaded. Just
he's Australian.
He seems like a gross serial killer.
Yeah.
But we start with him in jail getting out. And actually, I found out afterwards because I had another version of this movie that was a little longer. And apparently there's like an 8-minute longer version of this that came out after the original theatrical version. I guess they thought it was too short, and they made him. He basically added an introduction, like an opening scene where we actually see him shoot some old lady, which is what he's talking about, what he's in jail for. In the shorter version that we watched. There's also like a longer opening credit sequence that I guess, or some sort of opening sequence that shows pictures of him like growing up and has more narration about his life. Maybe that's the version that you saw.
That's the only version I've seen. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, like there's another version? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, the one on Criterion and the one that Seth and I watched is actually shorter, and it starts with him in jail.
Still
doesn't have any introduction beyond that.
Yeah.
Still feels super long. Still feels incredibly long. It's an hour and 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and we've left out a big part of this movie, which is wall to wall, almost the whole movie. He has this voiceover where he's just talking about his thoughts and feelings and violent incidences when he was a kid, sometimes relating them to what he's specifically doing on screen with his victims.
He will not shut up.
Whole movie.
The things that I did and the things, my history, my family, my history, the things I want to do.
He sounds like Gaspar Noé.
He also stole my girlfriend.
Yeah. So that's something that if you're not down with it, is going to get annoying as this movie goes on. But at the same time, this is so stripped down, and we'll talk about how this movie really is just following every step of him breaking into a house, killing these people, cleaning up afterwards, leaving with their bodies. If there was no voiceover, it's almost, at times it felt to me like they just had to have something else going on in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what else would this movie be? It would be so much even more of him just like walking around and hiding.
See,
like it needs something there.
See, that's my thing about this movie. That's my major critique of the movie. I think they should have went all in and just taken the voiceover out and given me not done the shitty Blade Runner cut where we have Harrison Ford talking to me. I don't want to hear him.
The Jean Dielman.
I want the Jean Dielman of serial killer movies.
Satan Tango.
Where the twist is at the end, he makes a full breakfast for somebody. But no. It's literally, I think it would have been more to my taste, actually. If it just would have been, and more true to its mission, it feels like, to just depict the motion and adrenaline, and you don't need to know why. So why are you telling me, but you're still telling me why? I think it would have been a very polarizing movie. It would have felt like an Alan Clark, like that elephant movie, Alan Clark. It would have felt really gutsy and weird, I think, and it would have been interesting. I don't know if it would have helped me, but it still would have been very disturbing, obviously. But I think I would be interested in that movie rather than the one with this like incessant voiceover in it.
I'm not sure I'd be on board really with either of those versions, because I mean, we would still have the way, the striking way this is shot, and and
his weird face,
the gruesomeness, and his face and the music and stuff. And I guess that is kind of the issue with this for me, is that doesn't end up being as much up its sleeve as I would have needed to like support this whole thing. And it kind of makes me wonder what really the concept behind this movie is, what he's trying to get across. Like, is this supposed to be just like a psychological study, and that's why we're getting all the voiceover and keeping the camera on him for most of the movie? But if that's the case, it doesn't really break any new ground. It's practically him just like reading what could have been like a police interview, where he's just sitting there giving the biographical details of his life. And I don't know. I thought a lot about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre during this, and why like I love that movie, and this one doesn't get under my skin like that one does. When really, I mean, they both have a lot of superficial similarities as far as just being a visceral, kind of nightmare. But I guess maybe it is that we're not getting it from the victim's perspective. I don't know. I've talked a lot. Somebody
notorious Texas Chainsaw Massacre hater, Zach. It's your turn.
Yeah, I was hoping that I could just avoid it.
Is that true?
So, okay. I do hate the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I really love 2. I really love 4. And I think that the Netflix one is like the funniest movie of all time. That movie is so bad and like just ridiculous. Like,
as bad as the original?
Well, I think it's definitely worse than the original. I think that the original, what it suffers from. So I didn't fully understand this until it happened to me.
I'm so glad you're giving your take.
Yeah. I dated a girl in middle school that had never seen it. And I remember showing her Blair Witch Project. And she was just like, why is this supposed to be scary? Nothing happened. And then my ex-fiance had never seen Texas Chainsaw, Blair Witch, Halloween, showed all 3 of them to them. And they were just like, you don't actually see anyone die. Like, what about this is scary? And I think it's just, without sounding like a fucking asshole, I think that we have shifted, and where we are now, like, what's scary is you have to see like an actual snuff film. A lot of you leave it up to your imagination doesn't work. I didn't see Texas Chainsaw for the first time until I was like 13 or 14. And so I was just past the point of it, like having that impact on me. Halloween, I saw as a little kid, and we even had like a fucked up weird balcony upstairs. So I just actively imagined that man looking over the balcony. So that did what it was supposed to do. Blair Witch, I grew up with it being like relevant, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I don't know. Texas Chainsaw is just so boring because it's just the most annoying people of all time, and I want all of them to die. I don't care that man's had a hard life and he's in a wheelchair. He should just grow up. Like, I fucking hate every character in that movie. And then the second one rocks because the second one's like soundtrack's entirely IRS. It's fun and funny. It's
Dennis Hopper.
Fucking annoying,
Dennis
unwatchable.
Hopper, dude.
Oh yeah, that's right. So notorious Texas Chainsaw 2 hater Marc. I'm in the middle. I love both of them.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on 4, dude?
Love both of you. I don't think I've seen 4. Never seen it.
Who could even spend
90s.
more than 5 minutes thinking about part 4? I mean, it just blends right with fucking part 3 and every other one after that with me.
3's awful. 3 was them like trying to be like return to form, but it was just them making Texas Chainsaw into a slasher. 3 sucks. 4 is like that fun, it's the 90s, we can do anything. Renelle Zellweger, or however you say her last name, fucking...
I think you got the right last name, but it's Renee.
What did I say?
You said
Renelle.
Renelle.
That's awesome. I was like prepping for the L sound, I guess.
Well, before this turns into an episode about the fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Man.
No. Zach has a thesis here.
I'm taking it back. No, I'm taking it back to the original
Zach
Texas
has
Chainsaw
a thesis.
Massacre.
Okay.
Which, well, I think we got the thesis, didn't we?
I'm following the shape.
Yeah, I'm not offended.
That you hate the people, which I mean, I don't agree with that, but to each his own. I just
they
think
do
that
die if that makes you feel better, Zach.
They do. It's just like a pure nightmare, like, and pure intensity on screen in a way that like I just don't think like most other horror movies ever
and it's
actually get to, no matter how much they try. And that
I can give you that. Yeah.
Major
and
thing
like
is the
with Blair Witch. Like with Blair Witch, you can't separate it from the circumstances in which it was made, and the whole thing is just fucking humid and painful and exhausted, and it just has that like that magic that movies like that have for me. This one, I mean, certainly the victims in here have always seemed like strangely passive and almost grotesque on their own, which gives me a whole other kind of question of what we're supposed to be taking away from this movie, because if they're like that because it's supposed to be from his perspective, well, at the same time, we're seeing how gross and the ways in which this isn't quite living up to his expectations. Also, him constantly spewing his biography out at us doesn't help with it. This being like some sort of super subjective thing, like where he's not, aware of what's going on.
So I will say that I think the biography thing, I think it makes sense that like it's annoying, like hearing you talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. Where when I watched it for the first time, in my brain, it was just, oh, he's just telling this to whoever when he's like going back to prison or going back to the institution. Like. Right. Yeah. And so like, I just gave it no other thought. I just accepted it as that and was like, oh, that's good enough for me. So, like, you being like, actually this, that, the other, like there's plenty of stuff that's not good about it. I can get that like wholeheartedly. And Nicole says hello, Marc.
Hey, I saw you walk in the background there. And Texas Chainsaw is another thing where we do not have any explanation for why. It's just like there is fucked up shit out in undiscovered and sparsely populated corners of the country still, which would have been a very evocative attitude to think about back around like the Vietnam end of the hippie era thing. Where again, this one just kind of it's giving us everything, and I just think by the end it just gets stretched so thin, where all of the formal aspects of it that intrigued me in the beginning start to just make me wonder that this director like isn't up to anything except just trying to rub our faces in the film, which never goes. That just on it, with nothing else going on, it just gets kind of tedious for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is such a huge conglomerate of folks that are on Letterboxd that fucking love this movie. I've noticed like lots of 5 stars, and that seems to be the argument is the bleakness and the sheer like there's nothing to hold on to. It's nothing but spectacle of the grotesque. and you just feel like you've been rubbed in shit or something, which I guess maybe I used to be able to roll around in the shit more before this podcast, but I think I maybe it's my fatigue, but I really don't think there's a lot even in that. Like there's like usually I indulge the darkness and there's something there. This feels like I'm indulging the darkness. There's nothing there very quickly, and I'm still there, and so therefore it's like I'm kind of just bored and disgusted, minus the wiener dog. Love that the wiener dog is in this movie.
I like that the movie has a happy ending where he adopts a dog.
The dog, it's basically a what is it, like Mr. Hulot movie where he has the wiener dog, and the wiener dog you're waiting for him to stomp on the wiener dog. Spoiler, it's fine. It's fine. The entire movie, everything else killed and raped and destroyed. But the dog is there with him to the end, and they're friends, and he's so
That's
cute.
Right. And he feeds him sausage up until the cops show up. Yeah. Dude, it's awesome.
And I'm sure somebody wrote it's Austrian, not German. I was just waiting for there to be some kind of literary thesis about like the wiener dog in Germany and the dog of Germany and the killer, and like I'm sure some really stupid political rant that someone could go on about what the deep parts of this movie are.
The wiener dog represents the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, I like the dog a lot, and I mean before we just get too negative on this, I will say like when it does,
I was talking about the best part of the movie.
Really weird. Well, that's what inspired me. Is the really kind of grotesque, almost funny stuff, like when that dog picks up the old lady's false teeth and is running around with them while she's being killed.
Yeah,
like I mean that's pretty memorable.
That helped.
The fact that she is like she's going into like a coma or something, and he's trying to shove her medication down her throat so that he can keep her alive to kill her. And it doesn't work. That was a nice touch. And kind of when he does the way that we spend 20 minutes watching him fucking drag these bodies into the car and finally and change and wash himself and finally drive out. And in 10 seconds, he runs into the back of a car and has all of these little kids like walking around the car gawking in at him, and he can't get it to start.
He has poor
he just gets to do a fucking fender bender like the second that he gets out of there. And so the kind of
it's just like dirty work when they open all the trunks and there's all the dead hookers. Yeah.
Oh, dead whores. Yeah.
I love when you say that.
Yeah. Thank you. So kind of the pathetic anticlimactic way that he ends up getting, caught in the end. There's something that's fitting about that. But yeah, in the end, it does seem like Seth and I kind of agree on this. Although this was my second time watching it. And when it started out again, I was like, maybe I underrated this a little bit because this is now standing out to me a lot more than Maniac did, at least, stylistically. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then it just kind of loses me as it goes along. And it definitely left me wanting to like take a shower.
Yeah.
But a nice long workout does that too. So
the bathtub scene does like stay in my brain. That one is just like a bummer of a time. Like, obviously it's upsetting to see people die. I'm not saying that, but just like watching this handicapped man get killed, I'm just like, good Lord. Like it's a different level of fucked up. Like,
yeah,
the old lady, okay, whatever. Old people die all the time, but I don't know.
Well, and the way the guy calls him Papa when he comes in, and this guy clearly has some sort of neurological condition or something, and thinks that Daddy is home upstairs, and he's telling that to his sister and mother, and they're obviously like, "Shut up, he's dead." Mm-hmm. So lots of little touches like that, but it's interesting that I believe this director never made another movie after this.
That's how I remember it. Yeah,
I think it actually went.
I didn't do the research I should have done before guesting on your podcast.
That's
real asshole business.
Yeah, I think it was actually not lucrative to make a video nasty movie that got banned everywhere.
He did make 3 movies total. One was a 20-minute short in 1980. One was a movie in 1977 that has no listing at all. And then this, you just get in, get out.
Yeah, did what you had to do.
I wonder what it was that happened that got this back under people's radar. Maybe it just like it finally getting, screenings and a Blu-ray release.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't own it. I don't know who would have done like a release of it. It should have been something like Criterion, honestly. Like, but I don't think any of the any of the boutique labels have done it. But I did never piece together that Erwin Leder, or whatever, the guy that plays that guy, he's also in Schindler's List, Das Boot, like all these big movies.
They like advertised that in the like description of the movie on the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was really funny. It's like, of Schindler's List fame. Who knew this guy could play like I assume he played some shitty Nazi, which makes a lot of sense
in this.
Criterion promoting it was very different than when Shudder promoted it to me.
Yeah. It sounds like, and we got two different versions because the one on Criterion was the shorter one, which the director prefers and considers the director's cut. And actually, I might have had it backwards. I think originally it was released in the longer version, but it was stuff that he was forced to pad the movie with. And so he took it out for the director's cut.
So
voiceover, though, stayed where it was.
Yeah. Sure did. There's no, again, the Blade Runner treatment. It needs the Blade Runner treatment. I want to reveal that I had seen this on like film sites and Letterboxd for years now, getting like whoa, big review for this one. Whoa, people love this thing. And
Seth and I have been friends for years. Yeah, that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, we have been friends for years. And
sorry, that wasn't nearly as funny as I wanted.
Us being friends is hilarious. I laugh about it all the time. No. But I kept on seeing the poster. I always thought it was Bjork. I thought this was a Bjork movie, and I was like, and then when it finally got on our list, I was like, whoa, Bjork was in a crazy experimental slasher movie. This seems cool. It has glitzy font on the cover called Angst. Ooh, maybe she's like a dancing, angsty Bjork. She's not in this. I was so disappointed.
He's not lying. I was there when he discovered the truth.
Well, I'm sorry, buddy.
Bjork was just a glimmer in Iceland's eye when this movie came out. But
that's another
critique
of the movie. So
lack of Bjork was your main issue with it.
Yeah, if it was Bjork and the Wiener Dog, I might have loved this movie.
Yeah. But so do we find this, this is on the Unwatchables podcast and people were talking about how, shocking this is. Is it, hard to get through on that level? I think that the stabbing in the tunnel that he does with the younger lady is really brutal and gross. And more realistic.
And he's
more realistic than you would normally get.
Yeah.
And
then to add to that scene is already upsetting, but the fact that he falls asleep on top of her and then wakes up and just goes about his shit, like it just adds to the griminess. Like just, this adding to the idea, like, yes, this thing can happen. Of course, that's awful, but this thing can happen. And like, who knows how long he was passed out. And nobody just noticed. Nobody came along. Yeah. Nobody saw it. It adds to the discomfort.
And there's people that enjoy this to this extent that they would be like, oh my God, like, post-coital or something that he just is knocked out and just like, oh, I'll just sleep here. That was a wonderful thing that I just did.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
I was confused because I wasn't getting anything while I was watching it about a sexual assault until later when he like wakes up and then his like pants are down. Did I miss something? Or
I think that might be part of it.
Suggesting
maybe
not
he did something during
afterwards.
The killing. Yeah, because he is there the whole night, and that's like also like intense. Like what we don't see is worse than what we see, kind of thing. Like he was there the whole night. Who knows what he did?
Well, so that's fine then. I mean,
what's fine about this?
I'm only okay with. I only support necrophilia.
Are you absolving him?
I'm saying if it was necrophilia, and again, I don't support necrophilia unless they died of natural causes.
Go on, Mark.
No, that's all I had. That's where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, what you're saying, yeah. I mean, the actual kills, there's 3 of them. They're really long. They are centerpieces, and I found them very difficult to watch. I don't know, like they're intense. Not particularly. I think what's difficult about this movie is just how little you have, and there's no release, and it's all bleak. It's the bleakness factor for me that makes it unwatchable. And I do think that's why it's a hard sit, not necessarily because of the kills, because even just because it's has to do with a serial killer as the main character, it is the fact that like it's just we got nothing. It's very minimal.
So Zach, are you ready to perform your song that was inspired by this?
Yeah.
If you would just recite it, that's fine.
You know, I was like, do I remember the lyrics to Angst? I do remember the lyrics to Maniac. I don't remember the lyrics to Angst. I don't know. Well, I do remember that when we did Angst, we I intentionally made it kind of weird just because I thought that movie was kind of weird. Like, let's say the lyrics to that, there's like 10 lines instead of like a standard 12 or whatever.
Did you record it like hanging on a crane looming over the audience?
I should have. We did record the entire first EP. I had a knife in hand when I recorded vocals for every song. So, you know, I did want to add to the
ladies and gentlemen. And this motherfucker doesn't like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't even know, man.
I heard that Bono also has a knife in his hand while he records his.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of similarities between me and Bono.
I know. Yeah,
we both have glasses. Both our names are 4 letters.
George Bush.
My good friend George Bush. Yeah, as seen in The Simpsons. Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah, that is also where I know George Bush from.
We've been pretty hard on your boy here. You want to make any last defense of Angst here from these curmudgeons who would rather be watching the Texas fucking Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah. Do you like this? Do you like?
I'm never gonna let you live this down.
That's fine. I was gonna say I'm gonna see Marc on Wednesday. He's gonna like kick my ass, like put a cigarette out, like on
That'll
me.
Be the one thing.
That'd be so cool.
So I think that I had said it earlier, but Angst works very well in a sense of it feels more real. I think that Angst is, I will admit, not knowing a ton about like, you know, the European horror genre of the 80s outside of like the bigger names. I think that Angst works as like a good example of early extremities. Like, you know, it's an extreme title because it feels real, because it feels like you're watching this, you know, like kind of like Man Bites Dog, where it's like you're along for the ride the whole time. And I think it works and it adds to that. And I think that, you know, an on-screen death of a handicapped man is already like setting it above something else. But then,
unless it's in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
man,
nice. Wow, Marc.
He is physically handicapped,
Sorry,
not
man.
mentally handicapped. And
you're gonna handicap me.
I think it adds to it. And then I think that also you don't even see him die in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, like,
well, God forbid we leave something to the imagination.
There's no
hate that in horror movies.
You know what, Marc?
Unlike a Blair Witch Project, we get to see every gory detail there.
Hey, man, look. Yeah, I think that Blair Witch.
That's my favorite horror movie, by the way.
Blair Witch is a good movie. I interviewed Eduardo, and he was a very nice guy. You guys should have him on.
Who's Eduardo?
Oh my God, could we?
Yeah, he's
Sanchez,
the co-writer. Co-writer,
one of the
co-director.
directors.
Huge Star Wars fan.
Hey.
Eduardo rocked. Yeah. I'll when we're done with this, I'll work on that.
Okay.
But as a sign of good faith for our Texas Chainsaw disagreement,
that's how the toast gets buttered.
Well, Toby Hooper's dead, so you can't help me there.
I would like to talk to Toby Hooper. Anyway, Angst, I think it just because it feels so real, and like it feels so real because of the weird directing choices. You're a fly on the wall as you sit in the top corner. You are this man. And yes, we had talked earlier, like there have been movies where you are in the point of the view of the killer. I'm not saying that, but it adds to it with it. And I think that helps. And then the fact that like there's just this voiceover of him saying everything in the most like lax tone ever, I think that it makes sense where you guys are like, it kind of takes away, it's kind of annoying, but I also think that it's adds to the eeriness because he's just like talking about raping and killing people and eating sausage immediately after, and all of it is just kind of like this monotone thing, and I think that adds to how uncomfortable this movie is.
See,
go on.
Thank you, Mark. I will.
Please. After you.
Okay. I mean, I agree with the points for this movie and like the individual killings, and again, like the rhythm that you get into, and the reality, the cold, dark reality of it, and the physicality of it. My critique winds up being like, even I have the alternate take, and I still don't know if that would really work if we took the voiceover out. I still kind of boil down to, and I hate this take because it feels like I'm like a stupid film school professor or something, but like I kind of wish it was a short film.
I think that's fair.
Like its duration is where I run into trouble, where it does feel like, and I know some of that's the point, like we're watching him get dressed, some scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of it does just feel like I just don't have, I'm not really wanting to stay in the room for the duration. I don't know.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. And it's, my thoughts on it, while they are like, oh, like I enjoy this movie, I'm not going to die on a hill for it. But I think that if it was shorter, if they trimmed it down, it would work. And I think that it would make it like scarier in a sense because, there's no like beats to come down from it, like, yeah, it's weird because you're watching this guy get dressed right after he killed someone, but at least you have something to think about that isn't him killing someone. Where if you were to trim it down where it's just death upon death upon death, that would just ramp it up the entire time, where it's just like it just keeps getting worse.
Yes,
and I think that would work.
Yeah, I feel like that would be closer to maybe what I think is cool about this, and maybe even what they were trying to do is just have this fucking raw piece of like violence and just motion and just stuff flying by your eyes that you can't believe. I think he still feels like, well, it's got to be a movie, so like again, like they got to make it have that extra 8 minutes for whatever reason and stuff like that, like, which is a problem with a lot of movies because we have this idea that everything's got to be 90 minutes, or like books, like every book, if it's a book, it's got to be 300 pages for some reason. Like,
and
like,
for the record, this is still only like 75 minutes.
Yeah.
I know, but yeah,
you're
we
right.
have this idea
I think,
of like short film versus feature film is kind of like a problem. I think like certain things could just be like a weird 40 minutes, even though it doesn't fit into the market or something. Like, I think this would be a killer 40-minute movie.
Yeah, that's the problem with the 40-minute runtime. I think that is perfect for a lot of movies. And, I don't think you have to necessarily be like, snobby to be like, well, this really should, wants to be a short. But, I think that there's movies that like have to be 3 hours and that wouldn't work any other way. And there's some movies that, especially some of the more experimental ones, that I think are made for that duration. But so would you want to watch this, Seth? I'm not at that level.
I really didn't like it. I don't know. I think I'm going to go and watch. It was just so icky. It's just down to the icky factor. It's not even on a filmic level because there's a lot I can write about with this one. There's a lot to chew on. I think that's very interesting. But the experience was just really off-putting for me. in the way of it being just so like I spent a real long time being depressed on a gray day. That's what it felt like. Rather than
this is what Blue Monday is about.
You guys all want to take a shower together after this?
That'd be awesome, dude.
Yeah, well, that's what we do after every podcast. And Zach, you're invited.
Yeah,
thank you.
Why don't we ever record that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just for us,
wild.
though. I thought it was just for us.
That's for the Patreon.
Yeah, well, it gets difficult sometimes. Yeah, it's for our OnlyFans.
There you go.
And but sometimes it's hard when we have like a couple guests on, fitting like 4 or 5 people in that shower.
Yeah,
but it's a good bonding. Well, hey, like the wiener dog in Angst, we survived this episode and this discussion.
The wiener. Oh, the dachshund. I love that guy.
Me too.
I did. It was so wild. I went to a wiener dog race over the weekend, and poof, I watched Angst. There's a goddamn wiener dog in this thing. Coincidence?
So, Zach, what is your favorite horror movie? Since you were throwing out classic names there like Blair Witch and Texas Chainsaw and Halloween, and I think, didn't you tell me that the first Halloween isn't even your favorite in the series?
Yeah. The first Halloween is good, but it's not my favorite. Halloween 3 is the best one out of those.
Jesus Christ,
buddy! I'm telling you, just accept it.
Halloween,
Halloween 1 and 2 are good as a duo, but Halloween 3 is like a great movie. And then I've had a lot of rewatching of Halloween 6 and 7 because they're just constantly on Pluto TV, and I've come to realize that
6 and 7.
Yeah, right. Okay. It's super weird. For a while, it was 6, 7, and 8, and I was like, well, 7 and 8 back to back at least makes sense. But I think that 6 is actually like amazing. Like 6 is similar to 3, similar to Halloween Ends, where it's like it's doing something different and it works. So I don't know. I think that, 6 be rocking. And I mean, plus it's got my wife, Paul Rudd, in it. But yeah, I don't know.
6 is crazy. We had so much fun watching that last year. And 6 has all the, there's 2 different cuts of it too.
Yeah, there's a producer's cut that was, and yeah, when they put out that.
And they're both just batshit.
Yeah.
Dude, the producer's cut is genuinely unreleasable. There's
and that's what,
there's no way they could have put that movie out the way it was.
Exactly. They put it out. It was this huge ordeal. Like, you should buy this giant box set from fucking Shout Factory or whatever. And then it's like you watch the producer's cut and you're just like, this movie would not. No one would buy this movie.
The power of the runes stopped him.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
My God.
They learned their lesson with Halloween 3. Halloween fans are not capable of accepting something other than hulking zombie man kill. And 6 was just like, nah, man, fuck it. We got this.
It all was leading up to this.
Yeah.
So what is it like in this inverse opposite world where everything that you say is the opposite of what I've ever thought about anything?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So you did ask earlier what my favorite horror movie is. Yeah. So
I want to know
favorite,
what does get you.
Sure. I don't know where I rank them anymore, so I'll just say both. But the 1982 Thing and then Black Christmas. Those are my big 2.
Okay.
The Thing might be my favorite movie of all time, where Black Christmas is my favorite horror movie.
Those are both great picks.
Right, both of them are amazing. I think that Halloween is good, but Black Christmas is significantly better. I think Black Christmas does what Halloween should do, and I think that The Thing is just...
What is that? In your opinion?
I think that Black Christmas and Halloween both are babysitter woman in her late teens in peril, blah 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 blah. Sure,
holiday themed.
Yeah, the holiday theme helps. Sure,
POV shots. No, they're very closely linked.
Yes, yeah. Black Christmas was Halloween 4 years prior, and I think that that's fine. But I think that Black Christmas, it has more to go off of because. You still don't know a ton about Billy, but you know a little bit more, but it doesn't take away from it in such a sense where, the Rob Zombie Halloweens, it's just oh, Michael Myers, he He kills people
we're
because he
talking
was
about
white
the
trash.
originals here.
I know. But what I'm saying is the original Halloween versus that Rob Zombie one. But I think that you do know a little bit more about Billy, but still not much. But I think that Black Christmas offers more with that. And then I think that focusing on this girl, and then, like, also she's going through this thing that even in the 70s and apparently now, but, like abortion being like a very taboo thing. And like, her boyfriend is screaming at her, telling her that, like it's fucked up that she isn't allowed to like do this without him. And
she's like, I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah. Like,
it's a 2001 joke.
It does offer a, I don't know how to say this without sounding like tone deaf, but like it's a more like feminist approach to a slasher, like the coolness of Halloween is like, well, she's a babysitter. And I'm like, yeah, that rocks. Okay. Where like Black Christmas is, it's just like this woman's she's doing it big, she's making these big decisions and she's not asking Peter to weigh in. And I think that helps.
Jamie,
those are all things that I like about Black Christmas for sure. I'm definitely, if I was choosing between them, would definitely go with Halloween because it's more because of how stripped down and bare it is.
And that's fair.
And there's something elemental about it that's captured like so perfectly in this way that every other movie has just added things to instead of stripping them away like they have been. And the fact that like half of the movie is just like daytime wandering around this neighborhood with this guy kind of being this looming unseen presence around it is a little more my jam.
Sure, that's fine.
But I'm an idiot who likes the Texas Chainsaw. Just kidding. I'm not gonna give you too much about that.
This is a good face-off.
My favorite horror movie is The Blair Witch Project. And
the movie rocks, dude. It really does.
It's a good call.
But I'm curious with Seth now. Do you have a favorite horror movie?
It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
All right.
Awesome.
Definitely top 3 for me.
Yeah.
Audition would be the other one after.
Audition's fucking nuts, dude. I love Audition. I watched Audition the night before I got my first COVID vaccine, and I was just like, needles are terrible. I hate everything about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. Just oh man, yeah. I think Audition rules. I think Audition's so good.
It's top 5. Yeah, it's
awesome.
Horror movies. Yeah.
I wanted to end with something that would bring us together, and that's what it is.
Do we end with me actually promoting the thing I'm supposed to promote, or am I just a guest?
Thanks for coming on. Bye-bye. These movies are all about anticlimax.
Happy Halloween, bitch.
Maybe if you'd like Texas Chainsaw more, we would have had time.
That's right. Okay.
No,
cool.
please.
Promote. Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm here to promote the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
It's a historic year.
Did you see the fucking
the giant chainsaw box set? Yeah, dude, it looks nuts.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Nuts. Yeah. It's a bummer that it's so expensive, but it does look cool. It does look very cool.
I'm down.
So yeah, what the hell was I supposed to be talking? I'm in a band called The Jackal. We just put out an EP called Crimes of Passion. It's a bunch of love songs about killing people. I put out a country EP called Akron's Prince of the Rodeo under the name Zach White. Unwatchables Tony engineered it. Unwatchables Tony helped make it listenable. Nicole from Big Egg also worked on it a ton. You can, believe all you want that I did all of that, but I assure you, if it was just me, it would suck a lot more. I run a label called
just
The
like
Caller
our
is in the
podcast
House.
would without Tony.
That's right. I run a label called The Caller is in the House because I love Black Christmas.
Awesome name.
I'm just crazy about this movie. That's an intruder joke, Seth. I don't know. There you go.
I don't know what that is.
It's a shitty movie from the 80s.
TCI, like the Jackal?
Yep. TCI ITH Records is like our shit on everything. You can find all of that. Yeah. Eventually I'll do another Zach White project or release. And what have I been saying about the Jackal? Oh, the Jackal will kill again is what I keep saying. So, that'll happen too.
Starring Richard Gere.
That's right. That's right.
I just remembered that it's actually the guy that was coming to the library asking about the movie. It's called The Day of the Jackal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally different. Totally different.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You guys are all about these Jackal movies. I didn't know about
What can I say, dude? If there's one thing I love,
French
it's just a
or
little
something,
furry guy.
Being a jackal.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's why we keep Seth around.
Real.
Is a jackal a wolf?
He's like a wolf.
But he's
just a little guy. Yeah, he's just a little guy.
Happy Halloween, Zach.
Hey, happy Halloween. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Hey, man, it was very fun. It's been nice getting to know you from this long journey between podcast appearances.
I know. I think that rules. I was talking about it with Nicole and someone else where I was just like, I still don't really know Marc that well, but I was like, I think Marc's my friend. Like, I always enjoy talking to you about stuff. I absolutely loved that we both lost that horror thing. And I was like, all that matters is that I beat Marc.
Horror trivia.
Yeah, that team that beat us, that was like 9 fucking people. Like,
yeah,
a bunch of jabronis, dude. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Can I just say I was the only one answering questions in my group?
Right. Yeah. I was
handicapped.
I know your group was just you, and my group, there was like 5 of us, but it was me and one
Tony
other
was
girl
in my
that
group.
actually knew anything. So, yeah.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, well. Hey, it's that time of year. It's gonna be horror trivia again.
Well, you text me and let me know. I'll be there. You know what, buddy? We can even be on the team.
God.
We can even do it together.
I couldn't take all the credit.
I love that.
We'll just name the team Marc Plus.
Yeah, and plus, if you ever gave me a wrong answer by accident, our love affair would be over.
I get that. I really do. Yeah. I did get one wrong, and I was pissed about it for hours. I was so mad.
Oh, I'm still not over it being in third place.
I'm the least competitive person. I'm afraid of doing this with either of you.
I hope you keep all of this in.
I don't have any fun doing it at all.
No,
I'm just sitting there laser focused. Yeah.
No, that is work.
Yeah, I don't know why I do it.
Yeah.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.